Today we're going to talk about controls, which are essentially HTML5 objects that you can snap together in the Newbound framework to create web apps and all kinds of neat stuff. We're going to start with a brand new installation of the Newbound software directly from GitHub. We're just going to download the master and we're going to extract it right here onto our desktop. And if we go ahead and take a look at the insides of that archive that we just downloaded, you can see that it's basically a Newbound network installation ready to go. Just launch the newbound network.sh and we're off to the races, right? It's got a compiling class loader, so as it sees the Java source files in its path, it just compiles them and executes them, and now we're ready to start coding. So let's open up our Metabot. We're going to go ahead and create a new library called local temp, where we are going to create our new control, right? So in our new library, local temp, we're going to go ahead and create a new control called local temp, and then we are going to edit it. For our local temp control, we're going to take advantage of the dial control from the Metabot library. We're just going to use a little bit of JavaScript to install that dial control into our div that we created here. So let's just give it a little bit of dummy data here and see what the default for our dial looks like. Okay, so it's a pretty bland dial. Let's add some data and see what that looks like. Well, there we go. That's starting to look like a temperature gauge. So the install control function can take any jQuery valid descriptor, right? Including a DOM element itself. So in this case, we're going to grab the actual DOM element for our div, and we're going to pass that into the install control function. In the JavaScript tab, you're literally defining an object that gets attached to the DOM element itself that this control is installed in. That element has a .api attribute that is this JavaScript code. And similarly, this JavaScript code, this object, has a .uuid attribute that is the actual ID of the element in the DOM. The install control function is one way to install a control into a div. Another way is to use the data control attribute in the div itself. So this will actually, just in the HTML, it will get pre-processed when this control gets installed into a web page, and that pre-processing will basically replace the contents of this div with the control. So here you can see we don't need to install it using JavaScript. We can just define it in the HTML. Another unique characteristic of controls is that they have this me ready function. So if you define a me ready function in your control, this code will get executed when the control is installed and ready in the web page. So here we're going to do some clever stuff to basically pull the data out of the US weather.gov service, and it will, we're just going to use the KPHX weather station for this example, but you can set that to any of the many stations that the US Weather Service has available. And so here we're basically going to be good citizens and detect if our control is no longer in the page, then we're going to stop updating ourselves every three seconds. So here we go. And there we have it. The local temperature in Phoenix, Arizona is currently 60.1 degrees Fahrenheit. Thanks for watching.